Hello everyone and welcome to the 4th season of Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. I'm here in beautiful but definitely rainy County Clare, and I drove up the drive of where I am now and it said Organic Farm, but where I am is Hometree charity and they specialise in forestry. But we'll go back a tiny step first, and Mitch Corbett is here. So, what? Give me an idea of what's in front of us.
Literally, so here is it's a really quite exposed area, and we've planted an evergreen kind of mixed woodland there, mainly Scots pines, all around here, and birch and alder over that side, and it's remarkable how much more protection there is here now than there was. Never mind in another 10 years, it's going to be a little microclimate in kind of the windiest place ever, because that's the Cliffs of Moher just behind the Crow just there.
Wow, it's some view, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. Might get lost because there'll be more trees there at some point, but we've got a nice hill there to go and stand on and have a look. But it's going to be a really beautiful little climate for all these saplings to grow in here, and this is really good ground actually. It's a lot drier here than over there, and it's still quite low pH, which is great for the saplings, which is awesome.
It's obviously you're really passionate about what you do here in the trees, but were you always going to do something like this?
Yeah, well, it all escalated from coming over and moving here for surfing. Yeah, so some really good friends. We started a veg farm and a bunch of food we were growing there to look after ourselves, and it kind of escalated into feeding lots of people.
So
were
you professionally surfing?
I was very lucky for 10 years to be a paid hobo basically, which was great fun. But I paid for that in some ways. I broke my back when I was 25, and it's actually what kept me here, which is I take it as a blessing in some ways. I absolutely love it here in Ireland. It's very similar to Cornwall where I'm from, just less people, which is a nice vibe, and better waves, which is great fun.
You're still surfing, it hasn't put you off?
I am. I surf as much as I possibly can. Yeah, it's such a magical thing to be part of. The ocean is totally different to trees, but it's also the same. It's just great, a really nice atmosphere to be in. Being in the sea or going in a woodland is kind of the same feeling,
And is that kind of important to you, not just for yourself, but I guess the wider community, in terms of creating a space not just where trees thrive, but good food thrives and kind of good living thrives as well?
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose the more we look after ourselves, the more chance we get to look after everything else, So it's all a circular economy in some ways, if that's the right way of saying it. I'm not too sure, but got to look after yourself, haven't you? That's for sure. But yeah, it's I really enjoy growing, and growing food is all where it kind of escalated from, and then to turn it into something else, a different plant, which is trees, is so much fun, and it's just all kind of pretty wacky in some ways, but it's magical to be part of, and it's nice to be able to turn it into a living too, as well. It's been so nice to be able to employ lots of people here to do a really, really incredible job whilst really enjoying themselves,
Breaking your back must have been pretty severe. You must have been shocked, I guess, in one way, but also incapacitated in another way for quite an active person, or what would have been a very active life.
Yeah, totally. I had to have 2 metal rods put in my back, and to be able to be so active now, I'm able to weed all day and go surfing is it's quite a phenomenal thing. I don't know whether it's my back that would just be hurting anyway.
Weeding all day probably isn't someone's aim when they're lying in a hospital bed. Like, I want to be cured to weed all day. But yeah, okay.
Well, that's it. It took me a little while, a couple of years, to really get back into surfing and weeding. But I've been very blessed to look after myself, be able to look after myself, and Right, we'll keep moving on to the next area. And Mitch, just give us a lay of the land for people not familiar with what Hometree is. What is it? Hometree is a native woodland charity, and we create native woodlands on your pieces of land. It's charity owned, it's a public entity, and we create woodlands, kind of like national parks. That's what we wish them to be, large national park style things, and then we would help other landowners, farmers, to create woodlands on their land as well.
Because I stepped into this polytunnel and I was kind of looking around for the lettuce, but there is no lettuce. It's all trees. So what kind of trees do we have in front of us here?
Okay, yeah. So it's quite a diverse polytunnel actually. There's another 5 polytunnels on site, but this one is kind of a mixture of. There's oak from Glengariff, oak from Glenveigh. There's oak from West Clare, there's Scots pine from Galway, there's elder from this site, there's hawthorn from this site, there's birch from Galway, and there's alder from this site as well. So it's just it's a real mixture actually in this tunnel. It's quite beautiful. It's turning into a jungle even at this time of year. It's gorgeous.
And I should have said we have someone else with us, Harry Badrick. I've pronounced that properly, haven't I? Excellent, yes. And Harry, you are the horticultural specialist, and I guess the specialism here is trying to mind these baby trees essentially and nurse them to some sort of maturity so they can be planted out. Is that hard?
Well, I don't know. When you look around at this, it looks pretty easy. But I suppose it's more just maybe it's like it's the climate, it's the Irish climate, the temperate climate, the kind of change in weather systems, the amount of rain, the erratic weather that makes it difficult, because if we're trying to use mechanical cultivation on a fairly wet site, it's that can be problematic with timings for things like burning off plants or like cultivating with the tractor or by hand. So I think maybe those windows become smaller and smaller, but we're at a point where we're about to scale up. Like this year has been there's a lot of nice equipment that's come, and it's a lot of experimentation this year, and there's a lot of really nice tools that have come from grant funding. So we're just having a lot of conversations about how we can play around and change things, and whether we're going to try and grow crops in 1 year in the tunnel or 18 months, and whether we're transplanting, whether we're direct seeding, whether we're broadcasting. There's a lot of different ways that we can grow the trees that can suit different weather windows. So I think it feels very possible.
And do you feel kind of excited by it? Is it different to anything that you're doing before, or is it similar?
Yeah, it's incredibly exciting. I have worked as a vegetable grower, as a livestock worker, small scale arable, in kind of forestry as well, and just to work with these trees and the seed, things like hazel from the Burren, is an incredible privilege. And it's although it's very similar to kind of traditional horticulture, there's a very different feel to working with trees. The time scale, I guess, is similar to kind of vegetable seed production with biennials. But it's similar enough that you can take a lot of things from different other kind of horticultural practices.
Mitch, as well, when you were talking about the trees and where they're from, and I mean Harry touched upon it there as well, hazel from the Burren, when farmers think of forestry, they usually think of it as selling out, in that they don't have a successor and they've had to plant the land, usually maybe Sitka spruce, because there was no alternative and it's just their retirement pot. But the way you both talk about it, you're kind of passionate about kind of restoring some pride and also kind of heritage in terms of using as native as possible trees.
Yeah, it's the heart of Hometree and what we do. We're trying to create kind of woodlands that are as resilient as possible. Like there's a beautiful tree from the Burren, the Scots pine tree there, that has there's a 300-year-old woodland above the ground now that has the same pollen content on it as the Ice Age bog pine, and it's kind of quite overwhelming to think that we're able to be creating something that might go through those types of kind of huge weather interactions with the earth. It's kind of mind-blowing to be able to be growing these trees that last beyond us. It's just such a magical thing for us to be doing as a charity, and we have so much support through people and like yourselves, even being able to promote what we're doing through the nursery and from all different dynamics of the community. This nursery is a lot of it is helped by volunteers as well. Like it's remarkable how many hands have come and touched all of these seeds and trees. It's just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, to have that kind of to have all of that diversity of genetics on this site, human and trees, is just mind blowing. So it's quite amazing to think where all of this is going to go, if that makes sense, because there's acres and acres of trees just behind us in this little polytunnel, so it's really magical to think that we can pass these to farmers like yourselves that are planting hedgerows and creating different feed for your animals and shelter and hopefully some type of agroforestry practices as well that can kind of support pieces of land for people, and plant the marginal land, that is not so good for grazing, and hopefully that can support a different aspect of an enterprise on the farm, whether it's timber or whether it's just shelter for animals, or different herbs for them or foods for them to eat,
Yeah, it's interesting you just talked about that, because we were chatting before and I mentioned that we have 1,000 oak trees planted under reps about 30 years ago. And actually, because organic farmers will know, if you have livestock, you need either a lie-back area or you need straw bedding for your cattle in wintertime if you're housing them. And because the oak forest is next to our slatted shed, we're able to use the oak forest now as a shelter, in terms of that's our lie-back area for the cattle in wintertime, so they can go into the shed if they want to get silage, and then if they want to dry a lie down, they can go into the oak forest. So I think that's really an important aspect, and it's just worked, and we weren't planning it that way, but it's just worked. So it shows kind of the diverse things that trees can be used for as well. But the rain has cleared slightly, so we might take this opportunity, because I know there's another part of the farm that you want to show me, and we might pick up on some of those elements of diversification, whether it's agroforestry or even planting trees for shelter, a bit further on.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, so these are there's 4 polytunnels this side of the site here, which have just been built by Polydome Island, and they were grant funded by the National Parks and Wildlife Service. Cool. Which is just phenomenal to be working with those. And then we have some magnificent tools for the nursery that are from the innovative native tree nursery grant that's from the Department of Agriculture.
This is really cool. It looks like sort of a roofless, like dune buggy from Mad Max or something. Like it's kind of insane looking. Yeah,
it's actually magnificent. We just got it last week, and it's called a tool carrier. So we'll be able to put our weeding and seeding implements in front of us here in the middle of between the 2 sets of wheels, and we'll be able to sit here and see all of the weeding and the seeding happening.
So it has the attachment that would go on the back of a tractor for usually like clipping on like a topper or any kind of those attachments, except it has it just behind the front wheels instead, and a huge gap underneath it. So right, wow. Yeah,
it's magnificent to be able to be so attached to the work you're doing on a machine, on the ground. It
has the pins and the arms and the link in it. Yeah, it's great.
It's a 3-point linkage on the back of the front axle, and then there's a big arm in the middle, which allows you to see between the 2 sets of wheels, basically.
And will that speed you up, or?
It will actually just allow us to do a lot more cultivation and management of ground. So we plan to expand the nursery, but the few acres that we're going to be doing won't be so much weeding as it has been the start of this season. We've just got this tool, so we're going to start integrating this into our plan now, our production plan, so we'll be able to upscale without too much weeding and too much seeding, which is it's going to be so much fun.
Cool.
But it does feel like a tool that you could almost take off on if you press the wrong button. It's great fun.
Right, well, head to the next area. We're sort of jumping in and out of polytunnels between the rain, but we've come into one and it just looks so beautiful. There's 5 long seed beds in front of me. What's in the seed beds, Mitch?
Okay, so this is alder from this site here, which is it's come from 4-year-old trees and 4 or 5 different provenances of alder trees here as well. So they've all cross-pollinated and created such an amazing gene bank of like one of a kind in some ways, you know.
So you're growing all your own seeds from Irish seeds. You're not importing anything. You're cultivating it, nurturing it, everything here.
Exactly, yeah. So it's as local provenance as possible. So it's collected from old woodlands as close as possible to this site, and then actually to external projects. If we have a project in Kerry, like we do have a EIP which is just coming up, and we are going to be collecting lots of seed from those areas and then bringing them here, growing them, and then moving them back. But we would actually like to work with nurseries in Kerry as well to be able to plant those woodlands there.
Isn't it sad though that this wasn't done years ago, and we could have avoided things like importing ash dieback or Elm's disease or anything else into Ireland as well?
Yeah, the movement of any type of plant is kind of nerve-wracking in some way, that you are going to be creating disease. But yeah, like we're saying, we're trying to collect from as older woodlands which are resilient in themselves, and we're creating a seed stand here which is cross-pollinating all of those amazing genetics, and creating a one-of-a-kind here. You know, there's no other pollinated alder seed like that in the whole country. You know, it's really
Irish alder seed.
Yeah, it's absolutely magnificent to be able to be part of it, and to have created it with lots of volunteers that have really put their heart into it, and now we're able to grow it in a really productive way in the nursery, like you were saying. 5 beds of really high productive, a big yield of saplings and plants, you know, in a small polytunnel.
Any idea roughly how many is in front of us?
We've just done the seed count. There's 45,000 living plants in here. We're going to be taking around about 14,000 from this by the end of the season, because they do thin themselves out, sort of thing. But it's phenomenal to have that many acres of trees, because there's 1,500 trees per acre in general, and to be able to cover 30 or so acres of trees is just of land is just phenomenal. You know, it's in just one little small space. Never mind the 6 of them we have. You know, it's really magic.
Yeah, 6 polytunnels, God, and you go, okay, someone can do the math there. That's better than me. But yeah, it's really impressive. We'll hop back out and we'll head to the next place. Mitch, we've taken shelter from the rainy side and we've come to a slightly more enclosed side, and it looks kind of very calm and well laid out. There's rows and rows of very neat, I know they're trees, I want to say vegetables, but they're not vegetables, in front of me. But what you're saying is this didn't always look this way.
Yeah, it's Harry had picked up on it that we hadn't mentioned it, but it's these strips here were once kind of waist to chest high in rushes, and we haven't ploughed this area. It's we had consultation from a man called Ian Tollerhurst. He's one of the longest going organic growers in Europe, sort of thing, and he gave us advice to flail mow these areas, and he's been really interested in seeing the reaction of how these green manures have come up here and how little rushes have come back. Actually, it's phenomenal. So like this is actually this little area here is actually a really good example of kind of, it can be whatever you want it to be. You know, it could be really good pasture.
But I mean, to be clear, what it looks like now is it looks like silage was cut 2 weeks ago and now aftergrass is coming up. That's how neat and tidy and green and flat it looks. But you're saying that waist-high rushes used to be here. I mean, farmers would view that as some sort of miracle. They'd be amazed that you hadn't sprayed it with MCPA or something like that to get rid of the docks and the weeds and the rushes.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the phenomenal kind of the interesting parts of it is we flail mowed it and it actually just sheet composted. So we had to do minimum tillage, like literally just like 5 to 10 centimetres of tillage on that afterwards.
Explain sheet composting to someone who doesn't understand it.
Sheet composting is basically the vast amount of matter that's on the ground, above the ground living. So everybody knows how tall and strong a rush is, you know, and that matter just landed on the ground 4 to 6 inches thick and mulched the whole area to create a really bare soil underneath it, so all of the roots of the rushes actually died off, and then all of the rushes broke down into compost, so it's sheet composted on the ground and created bare soil. And then we were able to sow it with all this diversity of ryegrasses and chicories and buckwheats and clovers, and we've created a really amazing kind of green manure for our tillage next year, for fertility, raising the pH in this ground, which is actually a really interesting thing in the nursery. Is you don't want to raise the pH too high, you actually want it slightly acidic.
Because farmers are looking for usually an optimal pH of around kind of 6.57, because they're thinking of grass growth the whole time. But for tree growth, you're saying don't raise it too high. Yeah,
well, actually, the forestry manual that we run from says between 5.2 and 5.8 is actually a really good pH for conifers, especially the broadleafs is slightly higher, which we're very lucky to have now raised this with a really small amount of lime on here, with guidance from Ian Tolhurst there, to bring it to 6.2 at this moment in time, which is absolutely phenomenal for our broadleafs, the pioneer trees like the birches and the alders and the oaks. Oaks is not a pioneer, but it's still a broadleaf which loves kind of a slightly acidic soil, to grow in.
So you've raised that pH naturally, not by spreading any lime or anything like that. It's just
we spreaded a fifth of the advised lime for this area, and it's raised it more than enough already, which is phenomenal. But yeah, as you can see, it's such a on either side of the field you can see the rushes are still waist to chest high, and in the middle it's perfect grassland or cover crop. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
Just that within, how old is this green manure?
This is 18 months.
Yeah.
Oh, 1 year, sorry.
Yeah, and within that there's already things like ragged robin coming back in, which is kind of wonderful to see. And just another thing, we found out from a research paper, I think, in Japan, that they'd taken extracts from common rush, and it actually kind of worked to reduce things like diseases in apple seedlings, so that we can see a value in plants like rush to use that to make kind of extracts or kind of compost teas or whatever to then spread back onto the trees to help them grow. It
must be very beneficial as well to biodiversity, because what I'm thinking of as well is the loss of ground nesting birds in Ireland over recent years because of rushes and land abandonment or overgrazing. So if you can strike that balance potentially between some forested land and then some grazing land, and then if you left the grazing land in between as kind of natural hay meadows, for example, or something like that, or you could restore it but by doing kind of sheet composting like you said, it could be brilliant for bringing back wildflowers, for ground nesting birds. I mean, there's huge potential there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a really productive piece of land. There's so much soil here, It's just we're usually growing the trees in compost. Beforehand, we were buying in compost and growing it, and we have a very kind of peaty soil here, which is perfect for growing trees. It's a few meters deep worth of compost, It's just making sure that there's enough air in it for the roots of the trees.
Calling this part of Clare productive land, I mean, that didn't go. That wasn't a given for an awful long time, but that's what you're saying it is.
Totally, yeah. As long as we can keep this place kind of dry enough, during the growing season, that's all we need, So
is it a very simplistic idea to think that the trees help to dry out the soil?
100%. That's why these strips of trees that we have are 12 to 14 meters wide, and we are trying to create kind of a system that is sympathizing for the wetness of West Clare, So
we mentioned how volunteers could get in touch. How could farmers get in touch?
Okay, yes. So if you were to contact hello@hometree.ie, we actually have a team of people that are working in the community, and they are able to give advice. We have foresters, and we have agricultural advisors working with Hometree, which is just, it's phenomenal to have such a mixed kind of team, now that could be helpful. Fingers crossed. They've done a great job so far in the past few years. So if anyone wants to contact hello@hometree.ie, or Ray at Hometree.ie. He's I probably shouldn't have dropped his name there, but he's a really, really amazing man to talk to, and he has lots of different avenues for people to go. Can point you in a really good direction.
Well, thank you both very much for that. That was brilliant. And we're still walking along here. But from me, Hannah Quinn Mulligan, thank you very much for tuning in. This has been the 4th season of Organic Matters. There's a huge back catalogue there. You can get them wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to find out more about organics, go to www.irishorganicassociation.ie. But from me, thank you very much. And we'll be back again with another podcast in 2 weeks' time.